Okay, great. Well, today is a beautiful spring day, and I have a really fun project for us today with acrylic painting. I may have mentioned to you before that you don't always need to use a brush. Sometimes we can use other items to create the mark making effect that we want to achieve on a painting. So it's a real simple painting today, but it's great results and it's great fun to do it. And I don't know about you, but I really need like a fun painting project today. So I'm going to share the screen and put up to show you. Wait a minute, what happened? Oh no, don't do this again. The other images, shoot, okay. I had them on my, oh, here they are. I have to open that. I think I have to open it. Okay, and then it's going to come up. Just bear with me for a minute. Here we go. Now I'm going to share the screen and show you what we're creating today. And it's such fun. This is with bubble wrap and Q-tips. And what I did it on different papers. This one I did on a black paper, and I also did it on other papers. So that was on the black paper, which is very dramatic. This is a fun one also. I did it on a printed background. I have this book of all these printed pages of these geometric designs. And I also did one, oh, where is the other one now? That was also great fun. Okay, this one, let me get you back here. Oh, no, I want to go to screen share. Here we go. This one, and remember I asked you if you had any patterned papers. This one I did on sheet music. So if you, oh, that one scanned upside down. Well, no, that's right. That's right, tell you that. Okay. So it's really easy. I'm going to get you started on this. I'm going to stop the screen share. So what we need to do, if you have bubble wrap, if you don't have bubble wrap, you want to get a tissue and just wad it up in your hand. Just wad up the tissue. But if you have bubble wrap, and if I happen to have the small bubble wrap, they make the big one too, that would work just as well. So you want to take a scissor and just cut a circle and your bubble wrap. And we're going to be starting off with just one color of paint. Even though the samples I showed you have, this one has 3 colors, because this is a 1-hour class. I spent Sunday morning, all morning, like 3 hours doing multiples of these, trying to vary it and figure out how I was going to teach you to do it. But just a free form circle with the bubble wrap. If you have a tissue, wad it up. And what would I say my circle is? Maybe it's 4 inches in diameter, and it's not a perfect circle. You know, it's a little wonky, but that's okay. You get the point. And when you're doing different colors, I would suggest cut different circles. Like if you're going to do 3 different colors, cut 3 different circles, because there'll be too much color cross contamination if you just stick with one circle. So that's preparing one of our mark making tools. The other tool we're going to make is we're going to take I like 5 Q-tips, and I take 5 Q-tips and I kind of bunch them together, and I tried taping them and I tried not taping them, just keeping them loose, you know, like chopsticks. I think the taping gives me a much more secure tool. Okay, so I'm just taking a piece of washi tape, which is paper tape. You can use any kind of tape, masking tape, Scotch tape, surgical tape, whatever. And I'm bringing the tips so they're all in the same plane and they're all the same height. And I'm just going to secure them with a piece of tape so they don't get all splayed out. And there's another mark making tool, just like that. So I have different surfaces here. I have a piece of this kind of canvas textured paper. I don't think you can get a good read on the texture, but it feels like fabric. And then I just have a plain piece of black cardstock. You can do this on any surface. I also played around doing it on a canvas and I did a neutral background tint. I'm not thrilled with it, but it's not horrible. And then the other pieces I did that I showed you, these are just on paper. These are just on loose paper that I had flat down on my desk. But because I'm doing this on the easel, I put the cardstock on a surface. So what we're going to do is pick your favorite color. And a color that you might have in a couple different values, meaning dark blue, light blue, dark red, pink, that kind of thing. If you only have dark blue, then we're going to add some white to it to get a light blue mixture as well. You definitely want white paint if you have it. If you don't, you'll still get the project, but you won't get the piece of it where I'm trying, well, I'll show you how we're going to get our light and our dark areas to create some depth and some definition in our hydrangea. I'm also going to teach you how to make these two-toned leaves in one stroke. So you'll also need a flat brush when we get to that part later. But first, we're going to make the flower first. So if you could have a well palette, or you could use like this palette paper, which is like wax paper. I think I'm going to use the this little plastic palette for now. And I'm just going to squeeze out. I'm going to put white in the middle well. Let's see if I can bring this down so you to a squoze of white there. And I think I'm going to choose, just put the white in the middle. I'm going to choose two magentas, a light magenta and an alizarin crimson, which is like a darker magenta. Is that going to show it? No, I'll start on the white paper. That's what I'll do then. So I'm going to do a squeeze of the dark and a squeeze of the light on my palette. To show you that. I got the darker alizarin crimson and the light pink. And the alizarin, this is a blick and this is a golden. Now the golden, the light magenta, you can see those stripes through the test strip. That means it's a rather sheer. It's not heavy bodied where it's totally opaque. You can see the lines through it. So now what I'm going to do is take a brush. And we always wet our brush before we immerse it in paint because that helps the paint slide off the brush. And then I just, wipe it off so it's not soaking wet. And now I'm going to take my lighter color. And I'm going to load up my brush and I'm going to smear it over the bubble wrap. Like I'm painting the bubble wrap. And you're going to see that it's going to rest up on the upper, on the sticking up bubbles, and the recesses the paint will not adhere to. And it does, again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to get some ink coverage down there. And I'm going to do this twice. I'm going to do it on the white paper and I'm going to do it on the black paper. And I should have put on a pair of gloves, but it's too late now. So now that I got this all painted up, I'm just going to use it like a rubber stamp and apply it to my paper, whatever paper I'm doing, and press it. And I usually work flat when I paint. I don't always use an easel. But I always use my easel when I want to stand back and look at a painting at the end of the day or a drawing, and just kind of tamping it down there, almost like it's a rubber stamp. And then peel it off. And then you've got this cool circular shape. So now I'm going to load up my brush again and do it on the white paper, because you know me, I like to work on two things at a time, because I'm impatient. Sometimes I don't like to wait for things to dry. And I also find if I work in multiples, I don't get invested and put all my energy in one piece that I might or might not break up with at the end of the day. So now I'm going to do, I just repainted my bubble wrap, and now I'm going to press it onto the white paper. And we're just doing one flower here because we want to learn the technique before we add on. And I'm just pressing this down like this. And now I've got it on the white paper. So that's basically our shape. So now what we're going to do, that just gives us an area. If you don't have a piece of bubble wrap, you can wad up your tissue and dip it in the paint and just try and get a circular pattern established. And it can be all crunchy and have lots of hills and valleys and all that in there. So now I'm going to set my brush aside. I am going to let it soak in water for a little bit, but not for long. And when we do let it soak in water, the gravity will pull the paint particles down to the bottom of the water. So that's okay. I don't want it to sit in there so long that the bristles get damaged, but just so that the excess paint falls to the bottom of my water cup, because I don't want the paint to dry on my brush. That would be a problem. So now I'm going to take my Q-tip, my little Q-tip tool, and I'm going to dip it in the same color. No, I think I'm going to add some white to this. So let's go back. I'm going to take my brush now, and I'm going to add some white to the paint to make a lighter color, because the whole thing that makes it interesting is the differentiation in the color values. And the values mean how light and dark the color is. So we're only using one color, but by adding white, we're creating other colors. So now I made like a super light pink, and I'm dipping the end of my Q-tip packet or bunch in the paint, just like that. And now I'm going to start, I'm going to determine where the light is coming from, where the sunshine is falling on this flower. I'm going to determine that it's going to be the upper right-hand corner. So I'm going to pounce my Q-tips and turn your wrist so you don't get the same rubber stamp marking with every turn. And you're going to start making more marks, and it's okay to go outside the circle. that's where the sun is coming from. So that's why it's lighter on that side. And I just go back and forth. And now I'm going to take and dip it in my darker color. And that might be a little gloppy. So if that's the case, like if I get a lot of glop on there and I might not want three-dimensional paint glops, I might just, you know, tamp it off to the side. And now where the shadow of the flower is on the dark side where it would be coming out of the stem, I'm going to start pouncing the darker color with my Q-tip and moving it around. And the paint from the lighter color will mix because the bubble wrap paint is probably still wet. And you'll get all kinds of interesting marks. And if it's getting a little like muddy or your colors are getting too mushed, let that dry and we'll revisit it later. Now in this middle area is where I'm going to rework and create more texture with my middle pink. This area down here is still very wet and I'm not getting a fine definition with my dark maroon color because it's smushing into the pink ink. So maybe I'm going to work in this middle area a little bit more, because when you look at a hydrangea, you see how there's lots of tiny little flowers. You don't see that it looks like bubble wrap, but the bubble wrap is there to be our guide and to just get us kind of launched on the project. And now I'll be working that middle area. And if your Q-tips start getting really funky and they're not making a definite mark, it's acting like one big smush, flip them over. You've got another brush on the other side. And we're going to continue to build this flower by continuing our mark making. And it is very like therapeutic. And I don't want to just have 3 colors there. I want to keep going back and forth, dark to light, working that mid-tone a little more. So I've got a nice variance of highlights and shadows where the outermost petals are hitting the sun and they're appearing lighter. And the ones that are most away from the sun are the darker color, and those are a little bit more hidden. And I like it when it sticks out from the ball a little bit. So it's a little uneven around the edges. That makes it interesting. And to blend your colors, I am blending my colors on the palette with my Q-tip. You know, sticking it in the dark, sticking it in the light, smushing it around, because I want to get a variation of the different pinks and the different darks. I don't want it to just be all one color. I want it to have a sense of depth and perspective. So that's why I'm adding the darker color. Like that. I think I maybe want a little spots of light somewhere. Okay, maybe a little bit more dark. And here. And it's interesting when I hold this up and look at it on the screen, I get a better perspective of where I need to go back in with more lights and darks. Same thing if you're painting and you want to get an idea of if you're grasping what you want to achieve here, then hold your painting up to a mirror or take a picture of it with your cell phone and throw it into like a reverse mode. And then you get a different perspective on it. So this one, I'm just going to set aside and dry, and I'm going to go back and work on this one. Just our plain old bubble wrap bubble. And it might be time for a new tool. So I'm going to take a fresh stack of 5 Q-tips. It could work with 3, it could work with 10. It really depends on the size that you're working on and the size of your substrate. This is a fun little thing to do if you have like some leftover paint and some small pieces of paper, like, 4 by 5, because a little painting like this would make the cutest greeting card if you wanted to just make a small one and make a little postcard, art card, or whatever from it. So now I'm dipping my Q-tip, my new Q-tip bundle, in the lighter ink or paint. Why do I say ink? And again, I'm going to pretend that my light is coming from the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to pounce it around. And this time working on the white paper. The white gives you an automatic highlight. Whereas on the dark paper, I had to use the white paint to show a highlight. In this case, leave some paper showing, and that will provide a highlight for you. So I'm reloading with a little darker paint here. And I'm twisting my little Q-tip bundle so I don't get the same impression with every pounce. And it is a pouncing activity. Love this alizarin. I think I'm going to introduce a third color here. This alizarin crimson is a little darker than I might want. Here I have a medium magenta. So I had a dark magenta, a light magenta, and now a medium. Where's my pliers? Well, maybe I won't use this. Yes, I will. Where's my pliers? Of course I left them. Okay, and let me grab some more paper just in case. Yeah, I always need my pliers to get these paint caps off. There we go. This one is a medium magenta. This might give me the mid-range color I'm looking for. Oh yeah. Yeah, see, that's the pink I want. So I'm going to flip my little Q-tip bundle over and dip it in this paint. And you may find that ooh. That you may be getting a 3D texture. Oh yeah, I love that color. A 3D texture with the paint, almost like a stucco. An impasto. See, now what's happening, I've got this stringy thing hanging off of my Q-tips and it's making blotches I don't like. Those big, they look like continents. I don't want continents. I want bubbles. I want little marks. So again, I'm going to wait for that to dry and go back in and fix that. That's the great thing about acrylic paint, is that you can go back and fix it when it's dry, where there are other mediums where you really can't do that so well, like in watercolor. I love watercolor, don't get me wrong. I just understand it has limitations. So I want to get more depth here in my pink. So I'm going to add some of the dark pink to some of the medium pink. And get a whole range. So your flower will look, this is a mess. Look at that, yikes. I need more Q-tips. What would happen if I just did one? If I'm getting frustrated that my Q-tips are getting mushy, this will take forever, but I just want to demonstrate. If you just go in with one, then you can go all over the place. Because sometimes when they're grouped, see, they get stringy, and these are real Q-tips. These are not like dollar store Q-tips. Yeah, so I want to bring in more lights over on this side. And as much as it's more tedious, I think by just using one Q-tip here, I'm not running into the problem I was having when they were in a bundle and they were all wet together and clinging to each other. This one's still getting a little funky. I find that when I have to like roll it in the paint so it doesn't get a tail, like a string, like a tadpole, that I don't want. So I'm kind of twirling it in the paint to get it to behave. Okay. And I want some more deeper color. I want that deeper color. I want darks and lights and darks and lights. That's where the drama is, where the dark meets the light in the painting. Okay. So I think I'm just going to set this one aside now too and let that dry. But I can see by doing both of them, let me pull this closer. One on the dark and one on the white. The dark is more dramatic. And you can do this on any paper. Like I said, you could do it on sheet music, on wrapping paper, even though sometimes wrapping paper can be a little thin and it can quite easily crease. This black cardstock is, it's just like, it's not construction paper, because construction paper is very porous. This cardstock is not as absorbent as a construction paper, but you could try it on that and see how it goes. I'm going to jump up and grab a couple greens because I want to show you how to make some really cool leaf effects. So we want to get a green with either a white or a yellow. So let me grab my green and yellow. I've got my whole rollout cart here of all my paints. That's why I can't bring them all over, because I have so many tubes. It's ridiculous. I'm just going to grab. I'm just gonna grab a couple of tubes. I have a phthalo yellow green by Academy. I have a Liquitex phthalo green and a Liquitex heavy body cadmium yellow light hue. So I just grabbed those. So this time, you might want to get a piece of scrap paper to make some sample leaves first, because if you're digging your painting and you're not sure how to make these leaves, and you don't make it right the first time, and you do it on your painting and say, oh, it's not what I wanted. So do some practice leaves first. I just got out my sketchbook, and what I'm going to do now is put on my palette. I have some room over here. I'm going to squeeze out some, do I want the light green? What did I do there? I think I did yellow. I think I'm going to do yellow and phthalo green because I want strong contrast. I'm making a mess here. So I'm going to just squeeze out a dollop of my yellow green. And now I'm going to squeeze out my phthalo green. Okay, that was the tube, not me. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my flat brush, but I want to make sure it's clean. So I'm taking it out of that water it was soaking in, and I'm wiping it off. I have more clean water. So now what I'm going to do, this is, I would say it's a 1-inch brush, a 1-inch flat brush. I have my sketchbook. I'm going to take my brush, my damp brush, and half of the brush is going to be dipped into the yellow. I'm going to flip the brush over, and the other half is going to be dipped in the green. And now I'm going to make almost like the mark of Zorro. I'm going to make like a Z shape to show you what I mean. And you're going to use your wrist to turn it also. So my question is to myself, do I want the inner part of the leaf to be darker and with a lighter edge to the leaf? Then I would make sure that my yellow, my lighter color is going to be on the outside. And I'm just going to, that needs to be wetter. Always an epic fail with me. And smush it. It's not working great on here. This way. Oh, it looked so much better. Let's flip the page, do another. That's why you don't want to do it on your painting first. Okay. What went wrong? I think it might have been my surface or my brush wasn't wet enough. Let's try this again because I want this paint to flow off the brush. So half the brush is getting dipped in yellow. The other half is getting dipped in green. Now I'm going to try that again and make, oh yeah, now it's flowing better. So it's like back and forth like that. So you're getting a striation of a leaf, but it's not the way I want it right now. How come it worked perfectly in my dress rehearsal? And when I do it in class, it's like, how come it's not working? Happens all the time. Okay, let's try it again. Page, load up my brush, do it again. This is what art school was all about for me. Wasn't right, flip the page, do it again. Do it until it's right. Okay, so if I take the brush this way, work it, pull it back, work it that way, pull it back. I think it's the surface. The sketchbook is not receiving this paint. But basically you want, or you could try it that, no, it doesn't work that way. You want one color on one side and one color on the other side, which seemed to have worked so well on that paper. So we're just going to keep practicing that. I need to go back. Maybe this paper or my brush isn't wet enough. It's the same paint I used on Sunday when I did all of it. Turn the page. Let me wipe off my brush. Try it one more time. Make sure my brush is nice and wet. Oh, you know what? I think it's also, I'm not doing it flat. Maybe that's it. I'm used to working flat. And with this class, I'm using an easel. So let me try it this way. Half my brush. Oh, man. The viscosity of the paint also. I got too much yellow all over the brush, so I'm just going to wipe half of it off the brush before I dip it in the green. And now let's see if I can do it flat. If I can show you how I do it flat. Turn it. And then I pull it through. Kind of like that. So it's a very abstract leaf. And let me do this again, because I kind of pull it through at the end, where I start off kind of like a little zigzag, like that. Bring it up and down, turn it, bring it up and down, and then I will pull it through at the end to try and get that vein effect in the middle of the leaf. But every leaf will be different. And there is definitely a difference when I do it flat rather than when I try and do it this way. Like I said before, most of the painting I do is on a flat surface. I'm used to standing and painting. So this teaching sitting down with an easel is challenging. So let me try this again. I'm going to go down and then bring it up and then down. Oh, my paint's drying out. Bring it up and then slash through. I think the paint needs to be a little runny. This heavy body paint is also drying up on my palette. Yeah, it's been out for about a half hour now, so it's starting to dry up. And I may have shared with you, if you have too much paint on your palette and you can't use it all up at one time, put it in the freezer. You don't need to cover it. Just throw your palette in the freezer. And then when you're ready to paint again, take it out about 10, 15 minutes. And you might have to stir it. You know, sometimes it, the freezing process can upset the texture of the paint. It might be a little crunchy. Might need to be a little smoother. So let me try this again. Doing it flat, bring it down, up, down, up, come through, kind of thing like that. Yeah, this takes, this does much better flat. And your paint has to be wet and juicy and fluid. It can't be stiff and form peaks like it was doing when we were pouncing. So I'm going to get crazy here and I'm going to do my leaf on my little paintings, but I want to mix up this yellow. It's getting very green and it's drying. Come on, don't dry out. Keep adding. Well, I should have put a couple drops of that retarder fluid in there, but of course I thought about it too late. So this is getting pretty juicy. I can keep it alive with some water. Okay, and now I'm going to dip the other side of my brush into the dark green and see what happens when I put it. And I like 3 leaves. So let's see what happens if I go this way. Okay, there's a leaf. I'm going to bring a little connector like that. So I don't want all my leaves to be that size. So maybe I'll move to a smaller brush. This one, what is this? I don't even see a size on it. If it is, I can't read it. Wet my brush, load it up with light paint and dark paint. And this is a much smaller brush. Let's see what kind of much smaller leaf I'm going to get. There we go. I got a small leaf there. And now, because I like threes are always good for balance. I want a leaf that's kind of in between in size over here. So maybe I'll just make this one. I'll use the smaller brush because the big one is making kind of wonky leaves, almost like a tropical plant. Okay, let's see what happens now. Okay, and I got my 3rd leaf. I might want a couple more leaves. Those 3, I'm not loving just those 3. You know, people say, when do you know your painting's done? It's done when it looks good. So I'll put 1 there. And now I just can't have 4. I think I need to have 5. I love odd numbers. Maybe I'll do 2 little ones here. Load up your paint. Got 1 there, and maybe I'll do a slightly larger one right there. Yeah, I think my problem was my paint was too stiff before. Now that it's thinner. And I don't mind that there's a little gap of paper and the white, it's almost like a highlight on the leaf. So load up my paint, put a drop of the darker on the other side. Now, of course, I'm committed. I got to go around this crazy flower. And maybe just 1 more over here. Which way do I want it to go? Maybe drooping this way. Like that, maybe a little connector stem. All right, and I'm just going to leave that. This is bothering me, but I'll revisit that. I go through this all the time. Painting after painting after painting. So maybe I'm going to go back to the big brush now because I do want to be conscious of our time. I was mentioning to Freda earlier that I look forward to the fall of teaching live classes again, where we will be doing the class for 2 hours live, where in the 1 hour Zoom, I kind of give you the overview of the technique, and then you carry it forward after that. But we'll have 2 hours in the fall. We'll be able to develop this more. Let's say, ooh, that's a big leaf. That's a really big leaf. I think if I had a brush, I know I have one somewhere that's right in between. But they say you should always use a bigger brush than you think you need. And maybe I'll do just one more over here. Like that. And leave it like that. So what you can do now that you have this technique, you can continue to do it in other colors, do it on other papers. Remember to bring in some darks and some lights so you get like a nice sense of volume to your ball flowers. And next week is our final week. I welcome any suggestions for anything that we haven't covered that you want to see. If I don't hear from you, I do want to deal next week with composition and creating an abstract painting with our emphasis on composition. So what I can do now is I'm going to stop the recording and then I'll take any questions. So let me just stop this.